Okay, let me give you guys some more examples of completing the square. This time we've got a coefficient of 3. So let's start out by sketching this graph. So our graph will look something like this. When it's small, it wants to do this straight line, intercept of -1, and it wants to do a gradient of -2, so it's going downhill, and then it wants to do a positive quadratic, so it will look something like this. So our job is to find these 2 points. Well, at these 2 points the y value will be 0, so we can put 0 into the y. So put 0 into the y. That will then give us this thing here. At the moment you've got 4 blocks, 1, 2, 3, 4. You want the coefficient of x squared to be 1. You want the coefficient to be 1, but at the moment it's 3. So what we do is we divide everything. We would divide everything by We would divide everything by 3. So from here in your mind, divide everything by 3. So 0 divided by 3 will be 0, and then this thing divided by 3, that will be x squared. This thing divided by 3, that will be 2x over 3. I do have the right to write it like this, because if you have a fraction and then you multiply something by that fraction, it gets multiplied to the top. So we do have the right to write it like this. Well, divide this by 3, that would be minus 1 over 3. And now complete the square. So when completing the square, your eyes should always zoom into these 2 terms, and it's always going to be half of this coefficient. Well, what is half of that coefficient? Well, half of this coefficient, well, let's just carry this thing down. What is half of this thing here? Well, if you want half of something, then just divide it by 2, and then it gets multiplied to the bottom. So that will be 2 over 6. Now simplify this, that would be 1 over 3. So we can put this into here. So that would be minus 1 over 3. By the way, half of this thing here is 1 over 3. And then you square it, and then you take away the rubbish. What is this rubbish here? Well, the rubbish here would be this. Hang on. The rubbish will be this. At the moment, when you square this thing, is this x minus 1 over 3. When you square it, it will, well, anyway, the rubbish will be a third times a third. So it's just a fraction multiplying another fraction. So it's going to be top times top, which will be 1, and then bottom times bottom, which will be 9. And then we would carry this thing down. So now single number, merge them together. But in order for us to add or take away fractions, the 2 denominators have to be the same. So we would times top and bottom here by 3. So 1 times 3 will be 3. And then 3 times 3 will be 9. So this thing here will be 9. So 3 over 9 is exactly the same as a third. These 2 are exactly the same, but just written differently. So these 2 are exactly the same, but just written differently. Now that the 2 denominators are the same, we can merge them together. So that would be, remember the minus belongs to whatever's after it. It belongs to this 1. So -1 take away 3, that would be -4. So that would give us this. Hang on. So that would be -4 over 9. So now all we need to do is rearrange it to make x the subject. So try and do this all in one go. Train yourself to be able to do this. So in your mind, add this block to both sides. So you add that block to both sides, and then you're going to square root both sides. When you square root, you get 2 versions, the positive version and the negative version, and then you're going to have to add this block. So add 1 over 3. So there, x is a subject now, and the 2 roots are given by this thing here. Okay, so next example would be this. So now this one here is tricky, because what you do, we always well, I'll explain the trick later on. Because the coefficient here is 1, you guys normally get stuck on this. Well, anyway, let's just do this. So our first step is to draw this graph. So draw the graph. When it's small, it wants to do this straight line. So intercept of -2, so -2, and it wants to do a positive gradient of 1. So it's like this, and then it wants to do a positive quadratic. So straight up, down, and then up again. So our graph will look something like this. Our job is to find these two roots. So at these 2 points, the y will be 0. So put 0 into the y. So that will then give us this. We want the coefficient of x squared to be 1, but at the moment it's 5. So in your mind, divide everything by 5. So 0 divided by 5 will be 0. This thing divided by 5 will be x squared. This thing divided by 5 will be x over 5, or I can visualize it as 1 over 5x. So let me just write it like this. So so this is the same as 1 over 5x, and then this thing divided by 5 will give you this. Now complete the square. Completing the square would be of something of this form. It's always going to be half of this coefficient. Well, what is half of this thing here? Well, if you don't know, then write it down here. If you want half of something, then divide it by 2, and then it gets multiplied to the bottom. It's going to be a tenth, so a tenth. And then you take away the rubbish. If you look at this, the rubbish would be this. Hang on. When you square it, it will look like this. You've got to take away the rubbish. The rubbish would be this thing here. So it would be top times top, bottom times bottom. That would be 1 over 10 times 10 would be 100. And then we would carry this thing down. So take away 2 over 5. So single number, we want to merge these two together, but we can only merge fractions when the two denominators are the same. So here we've got to times top and bottom by 20, just to get the two denominators to be the same. So this thing here would be 5 times 20 would be 100, and then 2 times 20 would be 40. Will be 40. So now the two fractions, same denominator, we can merge them together. So that will then give us this thing here. So -1 take away 40. So you've got to imagine the number line looking like this. You're at -1, and then you take away 40. You're going to end up somewhere over here. Well, this over here is -41. So -41 over 100. So so that will then take us to here. Let me just erase this. So now rearrange it to make x the subject. So in your mind, remember, train yourself to be able to do this step all in one go. So in your mind, add this block to both sides, and then square root both sides. When you square root something, you get two versions, the positive version and the negative version, and then you've got to take away this this block here. So take away 1 over 10. So here, these are your roots. There are two numbers in here, 1, 2. Well, anyway, this is your final answer. Okay.